Hello everyone, Michael Babcock here, also known as the Disney Dude. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel for more content, and hit that thumbs up if you like the video. So here we are, June 7th. Very, very somber, sad day for us Disney Park fans. Muppet Vision 3D closes today after 34 years of entertaining people at Disney's Hollywood Studios. So this attraction opened on May 16th of 1991. It has been there for, like I said, 34 years. It is a beloved attraction by many, and so many of us were sad to see it go. And it's I did go this morning because I knew that the wait times were going to be really, really bad. So I went this morning about 10 o'clock. I went in. A group of us went in, and we went in and saw Muppet Vision 3D for some of us for the final time. Some of them they are doing wristbands well, they were just going to have a special screening at after 10 o'clock just for the cast members. They did open that up to regular guests. So it's a wristband thing. So you have to show them your wristband and everything, so you can go in and see the final show of Muppet Vision 3D. I didn't do that. Because I live over an hour away, I had been there since 10. I thought that was kind of much. I really don't need to be. And this is gonna hurt, but I really didn't. I had no desire to be in the last show of Muppet Vision 3D. I basically said my goodbyes at the earlier show, so I didn't see a reason to stay. By the way, the wristband is obviously by the time this gets to you, it's going to be late at night, so it'll already be over. But the wristbands thing is done. It is sold out. That sold out, pretty much early on in the day. Everybody wanted to see this attraction one more time, which speaks a lot of volume. For this attraction, okay? And I know that some people, they were like, this is an old attraction. It needs to go away. It's not relevant anymore, and blah, blah, blah. You were not there. I can guarantee you were not there this month or on June 7th, okay? A lot of people still love the Muppets, all right? A lot of people still love the Muppets and Jim Henson, all right? And that's what this is about. It's not because, it's about Muppet Vision 3D and its historical significance, but it's also about Jim Henson, all right? It's really, most importantly, it's about Jim Henson and his life and career and his legacy. All right, this was the last film that he personally worked on. He didn't get to see the finished product, unfortunately, but this was his last creation. This was the last thing that he ever did. All right, and it deserves a lot of love and respect. Okay, and for people to, go in the comments and say, well, that's an outdated show and no one sees that anyway, and it's boring, and it's a good place for a nap, and blah blah blah. I don't agree with that. I do not agree with that. I am sorry if you feel that way, but that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Okay, I'm sorry, but no matter that, how these haters feel or anything, okay, there was a lot of people throughout the day, by the way, that, are, constantly going in to see the show. All right. So it's, just because Muppet Vision was not really kind of popular, in the park, there were still a ton of us that went there every single time we were at Disney's Hollywood Studios and saw Muppet Vision 3D. All right. So it really hurts. It really hurts my heart, when I see comments online that, are so hateful, so disrespectful. And it's like, keep those comments to yourself. Keep those comments to yourself. Okay. No one wants to hear that. All right. No one wants to hear that. All right. So, these last 3 days have been emotional, and, a lot of us are going to miss this attraction. I did get to meet, several of the Imagineers who got to work on this attraction. I got to meet Heather Henson, who is one of Jim Henson's children, his daughter, and she couldn't have been nicer. She couldn't have been more, open and honest. And, that was my takeaway from this. Every single Imagineer, that worked on this project, it was a labor of love. It was a labor of love from beginning to the end of the fit. And you can tell in the finished product, okay? And a lot of that has to do with because, Jim Henson unfortunately passed away right before the completion. I mean, he saw the film, but the whole finished product, taking it to Walt Disney World and seeing it in the park, he didn't get to experience that because his life was cut way too short. Okay, so unfortunately, he didn't get to see that. Okay. But getting back to the Imagineers and everything, a lot of the Imagineers were at the time very worried that this project wasn't going to go anywhere after Jim had passed away. They were told that they may not even get to do this attraction because of his passing. But because of Michael Eisner and his deep love and appreciation for the Muppets, said, no, we must have Muppet Vision 3D in this park. We must have Muppet Vision 3D at Disney MGM Studios. Okay? So it was because of his perseverance that, Jim Henson's legacy got to live on. And it got to live on for 34 years. All right? And, Jim, I learned a lot from this presentation. I learned a lot from this presentation. You know, Jim Henson, you know, he loved Walt Disney World. He was, you know, he loved the theme parks. And so doing something for Disney was, you know, something that he really loved to do. He really enjoyed doing. You know, you know, he and Disney kind of, you know, came to a verbal agreement, and they shook hands on the deal. That was it. You know, and then of course he passes away, and then Disney kind of was just like, well, you know, now we're really not going to do all this stuff that we were going to do. So, you know, just to give you some history here. So, instead of just Muppet Vision 3D, for this area was originally called Muppet's Courtyard. It was not Grand Avenue. It was Muppet's Courtyard. Okay, and originally this land was, because it was a land. Okay, it was supposed to have. So Muppet Vision 3D was part of that. Okay, and that's the thing that stayed. But it was also supposed to have an attraction. Okay, and it was the Muppets, the Great Muppet Movie Ride. I believe that was the name of it, okay? And they were going to spoof, you know, all these, you know, classic Hollywood films and such. And there was going to be a restaurant, and there were going to be shops, and there was going to be entertainment, and there was, you know, it was, you know, it would have been everything that you know, expect to come from a Disney theme park land, okay? And they showed us the concept art. And the concept art was, you know, just fascinating to see. You know, Pizza Rizzo was originally supposed to have, if you, well, not now, I guess, but if you used to eat at Pizza Rizzo, and you saw, if you looked up in the ceiling in the rafters, and you saw what looked like tracks. You were sitting there going, okay, why did they have, a track hanging up on the ceiling? Well, that was supposed to be, there were supposed to be animated rats figures, going around the restaurant and, going in and out of, spaces and everything, carrying things, and, that's what was supposed to happen. That didn't happen, unfortunately, but the tracks were still there. Okay, they did build the tracks. They got really far into development with this. They built the tracks. Unfortunately, the rats, they never got built, but the tracks were there. So if you looked up in the ceiling and saw, the track overhead, you're like, okay, what the heck is that for? Okay, that was for the animated rats that were supposed to, scurry along the top of the restaurant. Okay, because they were collecting, quote unquote collecting ingredients to, make the pizzas, and they were, stealing silverware and napkins, and they were just, it was all trying to fit into, Pizza Rizzo. All right. So, again, unfortunately, that never happened. The restaurant happened. Some things happened, some things didn't. Thank God we got Muppet Vision 3D. We got Muppet Vision 3D. The ride, unfortunately, never happened. They got into the concept art phase and everything. They were getting ready to build models and everything. And then, of course, when Jim Henson died, everything came to a screeching halt. So some things were canceled, some things were, put on hold or eventually canceled. But like I said, some things stayed. And, the two things that definitely stayed were Muppet Vision 3D and Pizza Rizzo. Okay? So those were the two things that definitely stayed in this concept. And, so the area was originally called Muppet's Courtyard, okay? And so I mean it was the same area as it was today, or was, I guess, I don't, but I'm probably going to be using the wrong terms now, but so bear with me, but it's basically the same area as it existed. Nothing really changed. It was same area, same bathrooms, Muppet Vision, Pizza Rizzo, store, that was all there. That was all there. And then they decided, I can't remember when it was, but off the top of my head, but they decided to change the name. I think it was, oh boy, I think it might have been 2017. I believe it was 2017. I could be wrong. When they decided to change the name to from Muppet's Courtyard to Grand Avenue. Okay, because Hollywood Studios was going through, or Disney MGM Studios was kind of going through a change and everything. So they decided to replace, Muppet Courtyard with Grand Avenue. Okay, that's what they did. Okay, that was just all they did. They took out Muppet's Courtyard and renamed it Grand Avenue. Okay, so then Muppets, and then many years, then it was Grand Avenue and everything. It the area pretty much stayed as it was. The area stayed as it was. The fountain was really the only thing that was kind of, I don't know if I want to say deteriorating, but the fountain used to be so much more. Obviously, there was Miss Piggy and, the fishes and everything, but it used to have Fozzie with the movie camera, and it used to have Gonzo in there, and it used to have, all kinds of, rats and, all these different Muppets in there. And then, of course, as everyone remembers, Miss Piggy used to spin. Okay, she used to, not fast, but she used to spin around while, water came out of the top and, flowed down from the fountain. Okay, and then over the years, it kind of, they started taking characters out, and I don't know if they just stopped working or what happened with that. That I didn't get to find out, but after a number of years, things just stopped working with this fountain. They took out a lot of the figures. They took out a lot of what was there. They stopped Miss Piggy from spinning, so she just, she was just stationary. So the fountain was kind of like, I don't know if I want to call the beginning of the end, but for us that that really loved going to Disney MGM Studios, we missed that. We missed that, and we miss it, and now we do miss it because now it's going to be gone. But that fountain used to be, it did so much more things than it did or does now. Okay, so and then they had the Company One store, which was the gift shop, which sold a lot of Muppet merchandise and such. That That store closed with the COVID-19 pandemic. So when the parks got shut down in 2020 because of the pandemic and everything, and then when they reopened everything, Studio One never reopened. It never reopened, and we were all like, in the beginning, we were like, okay, that's COVID. They don't want, a lot of people crammed into a store and everything. So, and then it's probably hard to manage and everything. And then as 21 came, 22, 23, 2024, we were like, okay, this store is not opening. This store is not reopening. That's not good. That is not a good sign. Okay? So we were like, okay. So we just kind of blew it off like, well, I guess it's not reopening. So, okay. So, we had no idea. We really had no idea that was really the start of, them getting rid of this area. We just didn't know that because, they didn't say anything. And then in 2024, they did a major overhaul of Muppet Vision 3D. They replaced all the seats. The seats were brand spanking new. They changed so the film used to be just regular old projected film. Okay? And then what they did was they digitized the film. So instead of now playing on a movie projector, now it's presented in state of the art format, digitized form. Okay? And then we got the updated Waldo effect, where after Dr. Bunsen Honeydew tries to blow up Waldo, and then after he bursts into thousands of Waldos, then they updated that. Then they put him on the walls on either side. That was a projection mapped. So, that whole theater got revamped. I mean, seats, animatronics, new effects, everything got updated and refreshed. And we all thought, oh, that's great. That is great. That means that, Disney is not getting rid of Muppet Vision 3D, at least not anytime soon. Okay? So that's great. That is great. What we didn't realize was, yes, that's exactly what they're doing. Okay? That's exactly what they decided to do. Which brings us to the last D23. So the last D23 was, they did a lot of park announcements and such. As many of you recall, there were 2 concept arts for Monsters, Inc. Land. Okay? There were 2 concept arts released. One was for it going in where Sully and the kids kind of faced the direction of Muppet Vision 3D, that side. And then the other piece of concept art they did was they were faced the other direction. So they were faced going toward Star Wars Launch Bay. Okay? And at that time, we were all like, no. Monsters, Inc. is not replacing Muppet Vision 3D. That's not the case. Because at that time, when they released the concept art of the characters facing Muppet Vision 3D, that's when Bob Chapek was at the wheel. Okay? And then I guess they decided to do another piece of concept art with the characters face the other way. I don't know which one came first, but so the one on the left where the characters are faced toward Muppet Vision 3D, we were like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen, okay? When Bob Chapek was at the Wii, we were like, uh-oh. Because there is no doubt in my mind. There is no doubt in my mind that if Bob Chapek was still at the wheel, Muppet Vision 3D would have been gone already. It would have been gone, dead, and buried, okay? So it wouldn't have lasted this long, okay? So when Bob Chapek got fired and got replaced with Bob Iger again, we all just assumed that, them facing Muppet Vision 3D was not going to happen. We were like, no, there's no way. There is no way that, Josh D'Amaro or Bob Iger, they're not going to replace Muppet Vision 3D. They're just not, okay? This regime is not going to be that heartless and cruel, and they're not going to allow that to happen, okay? Well, as it turns out, that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. Now, look, I don't know. Could this project have been, approved by Bob Chapek before he left and it got, stamped for approval? I don't know. I don't know that. We may never know the answer to that. It could have been, because otherwise again, I don't know. I'm just speculating, okay? I don't know if Bob Chapek had not signed off on this, maybe it could have gone to the other side. Maybe it could have gone to Launch Bay, okay? But I don't know that. We don't, as far as I know, no one really knows that. But again, at the time, we were like, no, that's not happening. Okay, Muppet Vision 3D is not closing. They are not getting rid of that attraction. That has to go in the Launch Bay area, because that Launch Bay area is dead. It is dead. Okay, there is nothing there of value anymore. Okay, so I don't know what happened with everything, but they decided to go I guess the Chapek route and say, no, we're taking out Muppet Vision 3D, we're ripping it out, and that's where this new land is going. Okay? And I want to talk about that now, because I think that that's ridiculous. I think that was absolutely asinine of them to do. Okay? I am sorry for the people that are big Star Wars fans. Okay? I'm sorry, but Star Wars Launch Bay is a joke. It is a joke. It does not belong there anymore. There is nothing there of value anymore. Okay? I don't care, if there's if there's a Darth Vader meet and greet, a BB-8 meet and greet, a Chewbacca meet and greet. I don't care. I do not care. Okay? That area pre-COVID used to be so much more. There used to be a film in that they showed you, a 9-minute film in that theater, that, by the way, is not, that's still closed. So, I don't know, okay? As far as I know, they're not using that for anything anymore, okay? The animation building, which is behind that area, that's empty. That's not being used. I assume that's just for, cast, whatever they, I don't know if it's, I don't know if it's for, storage or parking. I know that there is a parking garage there. Okay. So, maybe there's, more parking for cast members and such. Okay. But, I am sorry, but I am going to be the one that always resents this decision to take out Launch Bay, because Launch Bay nowadays is a joke. It is a joke. And I know people are going to come in the comments and they're going to be like, Star Wars, blah, 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 okay. No. I am sorry, but Launch Bay needs to be taken out. Launch Bay needs to be ripped out because that area serves no purpose anymore. It serves zero purpose. Okay, I don't care about the meet and greets. Take those out. You can put them somewhere else. Put them in Galaxy's Edge where they belong. Okay? No, you're going to keep them there. You're going to keep that building there. And that area is dead. It is dead. There is nothing back there of value anymore. Okay? Make the people that have offices in the old animation department, you should have made them leave. You should have ripped out the animation building, the parking garage, all of that stuff. Knocked down Launch Bay, and that's where you should have put it. That is where you should have put the Monsters, Inc. themed land, because you would have had a brand new plot of land right there, okay, and left Muppet Vision 3D alone, okay? And would they have still replaced Muppet Vision 3D? I don't know. I have no idea, okay? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But we could have enjoyed it, a while longer, instead of just saying, nope, we're going to take it out because we really don't care. We don't care, okay? So that's when I lost a little respect for Josh D'Amaro, and I don't know if we want to blame Bob Iger because he's the CEO. I don't know. I don't know how much he's invested in the parks, but Josh D'Amaro, that's who we should be blaming, is Josh D'Amaro. I know it's very easy to blame Bob Iger and Bob Chapek and blah, 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 but it's Josh D'Amaro. It is absolutely Josh D'Amaro. Okay? Now, I'm sure that, back when Bob Chapek was head of Parks and Resorts, he signed off on it. But, Iger gets a lot of blame. Iger gets a lot of blame for this. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know if he is, directly responsible. Okay? I don't know that. I don't know. But the person you should be blaming is Josh D'Amaro, because he's the head of Parks and Resorts. Okay? So that's who you should be blaming, not Iger. Okay? And I know that it's very easy to blame him, to blame Bob Iger, but no. Okay? So I have lost a little respect for Josh D'Amaro. Okay? Now, we'll see if he wins that back with, the Cars-themed attractions and the Villains Land and the Animal Kingdom expansions and stuff. We'll see. The jury's still out. We have, a couple years until that happens. Okay? So I don't know. But I lost a little faith in Josh D'Amaro because of him getting rid of Muppet Vision 3D. All right? Which actually brings me to my next point is so many people, and much to my surprise, so many people are, so upset that they're getting rid of Tom Sawyer Island and the riverboat and the rivers of America. I'm sorry. Okay? I hate to be that guy. Okay? I really hate to be that guy, but that area means nothing to people. Okay? That area means nothing to people here in Florida. Okay? People, vacationers come in, they look at Tom Sawyer Island, and they look at the riverboat, and they have no idea. They have no idea what that means. What is that? What is Tom Sawyer? Okay? Who is that? I have no idea. Huckleberry Finn, I don't know. You'd probably be, pretty stupid if you didn't know who, Huckleberry Finn is, but Tom Sawyer, a lot of people don't know who that is. A lot of people don't know who that is. Okay? So, that is easier for me to swallow because it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's different at Disneyland where, the rivers of America, the Liberty Square riverboat, that's where Walt Disney had his Disneyland party and everything on the boat. So it means so much more to audiences in Disneyland. We're here in Walt Disney World where we get so many tourists, they don't get it. They don't know. They have no idea. Okay? They have no idea. Okay? Now, the Muppets, on the other hand, everybody around the world knows who the Muppets are. Okay? It would be really, really, really hard to find somebody who doesn't know who Kermit the Frog is, or Fozzie Bear, or Miss Piggy, or, Gonzo, or Statler and Waldorf. Okay? It'd be very, very hard to try to find somebody in this world that doesn't know who those characters are. Okay? So that's why, that's why Muppets, that's why they last so much longer, is because people know those characters. People know who these characters are and what they meant to their childhood and everything. And Muppet Vision 3D, we take it for granted, okay? We take it for granted because one was built in Disneyland, okay? It's not there anymore, and it hasn't been for several years, but one was built there. But Walt Disney World was built first, okay? Walt Disney World was the first, okay? Because, Jim Henson loved, Walt Disney World. He loved the theme parks. So that's, our Muppet Vision 3D is more historical than Disneyland's is, because Disneyland's was a copy of ours. Okay? So ours holds more historical significance because ours came first. Okay? So, I mean, but, a lot of people, nowadays, they're like, no one knows who the Muppets are, and no one cares about that, and blah, 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 and that's old and everything, okay? People know who the Muppets are. People absolutely know who Muppets are, okay? Absolutely. They are absolutely relevant to today as they were back in, whenever they started. Whenever Jim Henson first appeared on, I think it was Johnny Carson, in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, okay? Maybe even before then, okay? But, these characters have been around a long, long time, okay? And I truly think that, having Muppet Vision 3D here at Walt Disney World is, it is a historical attraction that to me should never have been discarded. Okay? So that's the fan in me. A lot of Imagineers, they brought up good points yesterday. They said, that they didn't expect this attraction to last more than 10 years. Okay? That speaks something. That speaks something. For a show to last 34 years. 34 years. As I am older than this show. Okay? I am 3 years older than this show. Okay? So, to have the show around for that long is a testament, I think, to, a lot of people here who love Muppets and Muppet Vision 3D. All right. And it's, and a lot of people want to bring in the quote of, Walt Disney, and he says, and he said that, Disneyland is not a museum and everything. You have to, constantly change and everything, which, on one hand I get. On the other hand, it's like, okay. It's a Small World, Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, Muppet Vision 3D. These are classic attractions that should never be taken down. Okay? And in Walt's lifetime, he would have taken them down. Absolutely. He would have been like, what's this garbage? Let's get rid of it. Well, Walt, we just did it. No, we're getting rid of it. Okay? So, Walt would have absolutely done that. Okay? And Jim Henson was always on to the next thing. Okay? So he would have been like, I'm not dwelling on Muppet Vision. If he were still alive, had he lived longer, he would have been like, I'm not focusing on Muppet Vision 3D. That was in the past, and now I'm focusing on the future. Okay? So I get both ends of the spectrum. I really, really do. I am not that out of touch with reality. Okay? I am just a passionate Disney person that doesn't want to see these classic attractions go. Okay? I just really hate to see them go. Okay? Muppet Vision 3D, Splash Mountain, although Tiana's Bayou Adventure is really, I don't care what anyone says, that's great. That's a great attraction. The new Country Bear Jamboree show. Again, I don't really care what people say. That's a great show. But Muppet Vision deserves to be in that space. It absolutely deserves to be in that space. Now, I don't have a problem if you want to update the film. I have no problem. If you want to update the film, that would have been great. But if you were to update this film, Disney, I'm looking at you, if you, sometime down the road, if you resurrect this attraction and you put it, hopefully where Disney Villains is, the Disney Villain show, if that's where you put it, again, I'm looking at you, okay, if that's where you're going to put it, which I really hope you do, if you do resurrect this film and put it where the villain show is right now, if you want to have an updated Muppet Vision 3D, that would be great. That would absolutely be fantastic. But it needs to be with the classic Muppets. It needs to be with the Muppets that, are chaotic, blowing things up and everything. Not the Muppets that are on their, cell phones and, doing, stuff in the modern day. Okay? Because I don't like that. The Muppets nowadays are watered down Muppets of who they once were, which were chaotic, anarchic characters, okay? And then you have Kermit the Frog, who's this, straight man who's just trying to, put on this show with this cast of crazy characters, okay? So that's what Muppets needs to be. Instead of, Muppets, using, being on the cell phones and all that other stuff. That is incorrect. That is absolutely incorrect. Okay. But, to wrap this video up, because I've been talking about this for a while now, I really, my hope, and a lot of people, a lot of people in the community are hoping that Muppets get moved to where Disney Villains is, because that's where they're putting Electric Mayhem, rock and roller coaster. So if you want to slide Muppet Vision 3D in where Villains is, that would be fantastic, and have a new Muppets courtyard. Okay, so I really hope that's what they're going to do. If they don't do that, I think that would be a tremendous mistake. I know a lot of people want, because Disney has said that they're recording a performance of Muppet Vision 3D to use for archival purposes later on down the road. A lot of people are like, just put it on Disney Plus. Okay, and I've gone through this whole rant, so I'm not going to bore you with that again. I've done 2 rants on that already, but all I will say is no, absolutely not. Do not put Muppet Vision on Disney Plus. Don't do that. Do not do that. Absolutely not. Okay? But I just wanted to speak with you about one of my favorite attractions. It always has been one of my favorite attractions. When we used to come here on vacation, we were not ride people. We were not, big thrill-seeking ride people. So when we came to Disney MGM Studios, we loved Great Movie Ride. We loved Voyage of the Little Mermaid. We loved the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular. And we also loved, guess what? Muppet Vision 3D. All right. So, Muppet Vision 3D is really close to my heart in that respect. Okay. And a lot of Hollywood studios, which has died, no more Great Movie Ride, no more Tram Tour, no more Citizens of Hollywood. How much could you possibly take from us again? And they decided to take Muppet Vision 3D from us. Okay, to add insult to injury. Okay, I really hope that they put this back. I really hope they resurrect it. But if they don't, that's a huge mistake. That is a huge, that would be a huge, colossal mistake. All right. So let me know in the comments how you feel. All right. I'm interested to hear your take on it. But I did, I did want to speak on, this attraction that means so much to me and so much to everybody, around the world visiting, that, this was Jim Henson's magnum opus. It was a lifetime, a whole lifetime. His career, if you were to ask me, what would be my favorite Jim Henson project be, I would say Muppet Vision 3D, because that was really the one that everyone poured their whole heart and soul into. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. Let me know how you feel in the comments. Do you think they should bring it back? Do you think that, it's run its course or anything? Just let me know how you feel. But I know that this is a Saturday. I usually don't, I don't vlog on Saturdays or Sundays, but I just wanted to talk about this great attraction and this one of the great, genuine, artistic geniuses of the last 20th and 21st century, which was Jim Henson. And his life and career, and to me, his greatest achievement, Muppet Vision 3D. So, if you like this video, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. You guys have a great rest of your evening, and I hope you have a Muppetational great rest of your day, and we will see you real soon. And remember that tomorrow is just a dream away. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.